Okay, so the final part that I'm going to do for YouTube videos is going to be the add-in persistence layer. So we're going to save it to Firebase real time. Okay, but it's going to be saved to Firebase real time, but it's not going to be synchronized real time. Okay, but you'll understand what I'm doing. Okay, so I've linked it to Firebase. I'm configuring it, and I'm signing in anonymously. It's something I'm going to update in the future, but for the time being, it's just signed in anonymously. I've also created a whole bunch of codables, all right? And because of core location not having a lot of support for codables, I'm having to like map it a little bit. So we've got coordinates here. It's got a lat and long, and it converts to a CL location coordinate 2D. And we've got an extension here also to turn it into one, nice and easy. We've also got a running waypoint as well, which is a codable, and this has got its coordinates, speed, altitude, and timestamp. Potentially, it's just nothing more than a CL location converted to a running waypoint. And we're going to save this every single time the location updates. And then we've got the actual activity itself. It's going to have an ID, start time, end time, which is going to be optional because until you press that stop button, it won't have an end time. Position's also going to be optional because, yeah, and that converts to a dictionary or any hashable as well. This is dirty code, all right? This is really dirty code, but it's quick and hard and easy for the time being, all right? And if this doesn't encode, then there's something really, really wrong, all right? So, but you should do this with a do catch block. No questions about it, all right? But for the sake of me not being bothered to do it, I'm just leaving it like that. Anyway, so let's continue. What do we need to do? What do we need to do to save this? Well, every single time a location gets added, we need to have an activity, all right? Or we need to update the activity. So, first things first here is we want to have an activity. So it's a running activity. This is going to be it's going to be optional. We'll do it like this just so it's a little bit cleaner. Now, every single time this gets set, yeah, this should work because it's a struct. Every time because it's a struct, it will get called every single time. So we're going to save it in the database, all right? And what we're going to use is then here Firebase database, and we'll create a reference to it. And first of all, we need to know that it's got an activity first, all right? So, whoops, we'll just say act, self activity, and make sure it's not nil. If it is nil, then it means we've finished, all right? And now we want a reference. In this situation, we're going to say database reference with path, and we're going to say activities, and child here is going to be at ID, all right, because it's got an ID and we're updating it. And okay, so now every time, yeah. Now what we want to do is we want to update the values, and we're just going to say act, and this is where the dictionary comes into it. So we're going to update it every single time, all right? And it's pretty much nothing more than that, all right? Now the next hardest thing is updating the activity itself, all right? So let's allow it to. I don't really want to make any of this mutating, all right, because this is a let positions. But what we can do is add waypoints. Here, so running waypoint here, and this is going to return an activity, all right. So points here is going to be self.positions, otherwise it's going to be an empty array. And we're going to say points append waypoint, and then we're going to return a new waypoint. So ID, start time, end time, oops, and points here. Got complete immutability still, but we're returning a new activity. And then say, and we can also then say end, all right? And this is then going to return a running activity as well, just to say that it's finished, all right? So we can say return running activity, yeah. And once again, say ID, start time, end time is going to be now. And we say positions. So there we have the end as well. Yeah. Okay. So it means now we can come down to our point where we have locations. And if anything, we want to just trying to think how we best can do this. Well, activity equals, so running activity and an ID. Let's try and keep this as encapsulated as possible. So we want an instance of a running activity. So let's say ref, and here we need Firebase database as well. Database references with path is activities, whoops, and child by auto ID. And now we can say running activity here, ref ID, start time. Now we can say, actually, we can say start activity. So, and then we'll say here is nil, and positions, and potentially we want a waypoint as well. Because if they're going to start it, we have to have a waypoint. And positions are going to be here. Yeah, so there we go. We have a waypoint. So now we can come back to here and essentially just say activity equals running activity, start, and location, waypoint. All right, and that triggers it. And stopping the activity is ending already here. But this will get triggered anyway, and it will be updated every single time. Yeah, that'd be fine. And then we just need to know ends, the end time when that gets set. End time activity equals running activity ends. Whoops. It's activity ends, and that'll then update the end, which will then save it, which is good. Now we want to say database, and go back online again. All right. Now, when we start, when the start time sets, actually, once the action button, the start button gets pressed here, we're then going to say database go offline. All right, and we're not going to allow it to write to anything. Now, when the start button does get pressed, we don't go online until we have a location, and here we've got the location, and here we say activity add waypoint. That's waypoint. And then we need to update the activity itself here. So this will, every single time we have an activity, it will trigger the did set, and then that'll update it itself with the new waypoint. So we're happy there. And the most we need to care about is when it ends. So the stop button is going to set the end time. And once we've got this end time, end, and we'll put, say, that's a bit better, and end at date, all right? So at least we can control it from an external point. And yeah, we're not really interested in this interval. We just want to know that it stops now, and this is an end time that we want to have. So then we go online, and that should be enough. Have another think about this. Okay, it gets set here with the first waypoint, gets updated with every single waypoint, and it ends here. Yep. Okay, important thing to note is that once we've gone offline, we null out the activity, so we'll remove it, and then we need to do a little bit of cleanup. So we need to say start time is equal to nil, end time is equal to nil, start location is equal to nil, and last location is equal to nil. What else do we have? Oh yeah, let's move this last location up here, so that's close to that. Distance needs to be set back to 0. Distance set back to 0. Timer is already set to nil. Activity is set to nil. Should work. Yeah. So let's try it back on the 6+ again. I did actually test it on my phone. Oh, this is key. I did actually test it on one of my old phones, which I plan to use for running. This is why I'm building this, for myself to go running with. I don't want to take my phone with me, just in case I drop it whilst I'm running. Okay, let's start. And let's look at Firebase. This is where the app's going to be, all right? So if we stop it, there we go. And we get all the positions that's there. Now, if we take off this, the point of the going offline is because we only want it to save like when we really want it to save. Yeah, if we comment out this, run the app again, then it will just get called all the time. And there's nothing wrong with that, but I'd rather it just be saved at one point rather than continuously using internet, right, and needing internet. Yeah, so you can see here it's getting permanently updated with new locations. And then when we stop it, the end time comes as well. So I much prefer that the phone can go on airplane mode, and with airplane mode, Firebase doesn't need a connection, right? It can still work. And as soon as you get back to wherever it is that you're going to have a shower or whatever, and you've stopped, then you stop it, and then you can turn your internet on, and then it will do it. All right. So this is effectively as far as I'm going to take this so far. I'm not going to say I'm going to make any more. I might do, but I hope that you've enjoyed this. I hope it's been helpful to you to do. I've enjoyed doing it. It's been about 3 hours maybe. I've taken a few breaks in between to drink coffee and stuff like that, but ultimately it's been pretty cool. And I'm looking forward to maybe doing a few more hours on it. I don't know. The GitHub source, the source for the code will be in my GitHub, the link below, and so on. I do this stuff out of love of programming and so on, but there's a link for my Patreon down below. If you want to buy me a coffee, then buy me a coffee for it, just to say thank you. I mean, there's code here that you can use, and essentially there's enough code here to be able to build some form of app. To put your own app in the App Store here is a basic amount of code that you can have. Yeah, I thank you very much for watching. Like, subscribe, comment, do whatever you want. But it's been enjoyable. Thanks very much. Bye bye then. Bye bye.